Punks Against Racism came out of a high school project, grade 10 history project to promote racism awareness. So Justin was in my group, and my friends Jesse and Deidre. And Jesse was like, "Oh, my boyfriend Ryan was this guy, Ryan Webb, who had run the Aurora Bowl shows," and she said he can, probably help us with figuring out bands and the show logistics. We just were like, we've been going to shows, and we can do whatever we want for this project, so let's run a show. And it was like March of '99. It was probably, and when's International Racism Awareness Day? I think that's March 21st. So it was probably like 25 years ago, like right around now.
That's crazy.
Within like the last, right around this time in the calendar year, we actually happened the first Punks Against Racism. So Ryan like knew, those local bands. Like Excretion played the first Punks Against Racism, as did Ruckus, as did Model Citizen. So some of those bands that I had seen at my first show. But there was like a record label around at the time that was more regional and had a lot of Toronto bands on it, called Raw Energy. And they had a couple compilations, and we had the second one. It was called On the Road Again. And in the back of the liner notes, it had like all the bands that were on the comp. It had a first name and a phone number for someone in that band. So, that's where we got a hold of Maryland's Vitamins and Out of Hand to come in and play, which added some extra credibility to our event, because and we were supposed to have Trunk, but they ended up canceling. And like Maryland's Vitamins and Trunk played with Rancid at the Alma Combo like the year before, so it was like those bands had, and Maryland's, all those bands did a bunch of good stuff. But like from my perspective of being new to the scene, we're like, oh, these, like that was the cool thing for us, right? Yeah. And I'd seen them at the Aurora Bowl and had gotten their CD and really liked them. So we're like, well, let's call these guys. The first year we had 300 people. The second year, I think it went down, like it was kind of weird. The second year it maybe went down to 200. And then the third year, like we ran it at the youth center, and I think there were not like kind of 150 people. And so I thought that it was maybe like the scene was in a bit of a decline, but between year 3 and 4, the scene really like picked up in a significant way. I think like the venue did you ever go to shows at the Spotlight?
No, I don't think
Theater School? No. That was a really cool venue, and it really felt like you were going to a show. Like, the tech desk was up in the balcony where the lights were shining down. There was a big stage. When they had both units, had two joining units, you could actually, bands could load in to the stage from behind, and then there was a green rooms just off the side. So it could be like a real, like a professional show where the bands hang out in the green room and come onto stage, and if they wanted to, right? So, and not that people really did that, because everyone just kind of mingled anyway. It was like the scene wasn't like that. Like bands were with the people were with the bands. Everyone was friends, but it had a huge stage. There were curtains. You could open the curtains before the band played. Like we could put a little bit more of a production on.
Create like an ambiance.
Yeah, so that was always like one of my favorite venues. But there were enough bands that we decided in the scene, like enough people were coming to the shows, that Punks Against Racism couldn't just be a single day anymore. So in the fourth year, it became a 2-day show, and it forever was a 2-day show after that. Maybe I tried to do a third day at one point and do like a Sunday matinee show or something. We definitely had done things where we would do, an all ages show and then a 19 plus after show, as the scenes were kind of transitioning. multiple stages where like if we had a venue that had two stages, we could really load in the bands because you could just A and B those stages, and when that one's done, that one starts, you know. More festival style, so almost like seamless. So we did that sometimes. um, uh, yeah, we did lots of even at the Goat in a more recent one, it was like upstairs and downstairs, and it would
Yeah,
alternate, you know.
that was
So
in 2019, right? That
yeah,
was fun.
yeah. So we definitely had lots of different iterations and versions, and just tried to make use of the venue as best as we could, and
Yeah,
put as many bands on, and just, you know, they became mini festivals, right? Like the annual mini festival.
yeah.
So
It's cool how with venues opening and closing all of the time, how it might limit you, but also it might just allow you to experiment with a bunch of different styles of like production and putting on a show.
yeah, we had to really get creative sometimes to find a space to do shows. And I don't know that I ever ran them, but there were like shows at our friend Yondel's sister's dance studio. Like just, you know, there were really no venues for a while, and like we did some shows at Studio Five Hair on Main Street. Do you remember those?
Yeah, I
Uh,
think I played a couple, oh, not a couple, maybe just, I think the first one that you guys did. That was a lot of
yeah,
fun.
yeah, but, like, Colin, who ran that barber shop, played in like, I have a picture of him at the first Punks Against Racism, you know, like,
Amazing.
and he played in some bands, you know, back in the early days of the scene, right? So he's like, "Yeah, you need a venue? Cool, move all the chairs. You can only fit these many people in it." We're like, "Great, cool." I think Hostage like played there. So sometimes you had to find really unconventional venues, but somehow we always had a place to found a place to play. The first few years, we were donating to the Simon Wiesenthal Foundation, and one of the things that the Simon Wiesenthal Center did, and I don't know if it was like something that like, maybe my mom donated to, or we saw, probably because or we were doing, I can't remember. I honestly can't remember how we found them, but originally what we knew that they were doing was exposing Nazis who were still getting blood money from the war, so that they were basically getting cut off. We're like, yeah, cool, that sounds great. Like we were 15, you know, we didn't really think that hard into it, um, other than we wanted to donate money to someone who was going to be you know, doing something that would be against, you know, something that was like racist or prejudice. And, you know, like I'm Jewish, I grew up learning about the Holocaust. So, you know, history project that ties into it. Um, and so that's kind of where we went until, you know, my buddy Eric was like, yeah, these guys do some stuff that you might not be aware of. And we're like, yeah, that's not what we want to support. So we changed that after the third year, and it did a little bit more research, and um, it was still really focused on, you know, how like my focus at the time was still how do we educate people, and it was more still around things like the Holocaust or race wars, and so through the war amps we learned about a program they had called Never Again, and they would go into schools and teach people about why, you know, things like the Holocaust shouldn't happen, and and I think we kind of just kept, you know, trying to support that effort for as long as they ran that program. And when the program ended, and I can't remember at what point it was, I went back to the, you know, had to go back to the drawing board, and I found something called Artists Against Racism, which essentially did the same thing, but in a more broad way, and focused not just on things like race wars, but focused on just, you know, they had a whole bunch of celebrities that were part of their group that would go into schools and teach kids just about more generally about racism and why, you know, you don't want to have that type of prejudice.
Yeah.
And that's probably my favorite one that we worked with, just because I think it really got to kind of the essence of the message that we were trying to promote. Um, and then later in the last couple of years, um, there's a program, I forget what it's called now, through um, Big Brothers Big Sisters of York, that helps integrate new Canadians. So I thought that, you know, it's kind of an indirect way, but it's helping support new Canadians to be integrated into the region that they have moved into. And I think that there's still like a lot of people are coming from other places, and part of that integration is going to be, you know, making sure that everyone, like, people feel equal, right, and that people
Absolutely.
are treated equal. So, and I wanted it to still be something that, like, something that was a little bit more locally focused as well. So, um, yeah, so that's kind of like some of the different groups we worked with over the years.
Yeah. Was it mostly donation based, or was it? Did you ever work with these charities directly?
No, I didn't do a lot of work with them directly. We really just donated. I think I had a pretty good relationship with Lisa at Artists Against Racism, and we would kind of talk every year as we were getting closer to the event. I don't think I was like, I was focused on running the shows. I wasn't really thinking about like getting out and volunteering in the
Yeah.
community in that type of a way with these groups. Um, so it was really you know, on those particular shows, any funds that we raised, you know, all the bands played for gas money if they were coming from out of town, or just came if they were local, and all of the you know, funds from the door, and any snacks that we sold, like any profits after expenses, we would just donate. The youth center shows always benefited the youth center. So kind of indirectly, like doing those annual, you know, those quarterly youth center shows, or the 4 times a year that they would do them, and just going to help out there, I think, and promote those shows, helped. We had done some stuff like over the years, different ones. In our earlier days, it was a really easy way to manage your budget, if all of your profits were going to support you know, a charity or a not-for-profit. So we had donated to Yellow Brick House in Aurora, which is a women's shelter. In Newmarket, we had done some shows to support In From the Cold. Those are two that kind of jump out, but I think like really the annual benefit was to do, after a certain point in time, was to do Punks Against Racism.
Thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to do this with me.
Yeah, of course. Happy to do it. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, of course.
It's always fun to talk about these things. So,
Yeah,
it,
and I just want to say, like, when I was playing in bands, I don't think we ever really voiced our appreciation for the work that you put in, but I really appreciate the work that you put in.
thanks, man. I really appreciate that.
I'll see you later.
Yeah, take care.
Bye.
Bye.